I wanted to mark the occasion of 50 years since the first medley competition took place. So we researched it, we looked at the possibilities, we got the people together, and here we are this evening.
Ken and John and David visited the branch meeting one night and outlined the whole thing to the branch. And I think, fair to say, you got overwhelming support.
Interestingly, I got a phone call from a Mr. McLeod to say that, Kevin, I've got these two guys and they've got this idea, what do you think? And I thought, what a bloody good idea. You know, it's part of our association's history. I didn't know that George was involved at the time because he passed the buck on to me to get the bands, to get the directors to allow them to play an unregistered band. But we got through that anyway. And I'm really looking forward to the performance tomorrow.
We hope we can, as a band tomorrow, with the heat and the challenges that lies ahead, but we've done so well. I suppose, if you take it, we've only had 6-7 band practices, roughly, together, since we started to try it, and it has come very, very well together. So I thank you all for participating.
I think it's so important that we look after our history, look after what went on so many years ago. You know, we'll never replicate it, it'll never happen again. You know, and 50 years ago, people put their heads above the parapet and said, let's do something different. And that was a brave, brave move.
Alan, thanks very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to Pipers'Persuasion. Now, 1970 was the first year that the medley competition was used at the World Championship. Prior to that, in the 60s, it was all march, drisspe and reel. And the last 5 years of the 60s, it was Muirhead and Sons that won 5 World Championships playing march, drisspe and reel. And then 1970 came a step change because the World Championship took on the medley format where the grade 1 bands had to play between 5 and 7 minutes. Marches, slow airs, dance straw space, 2-part straw space, dance reels, introducing also jig and hornpipe. And as well as that, a degree of harmony was introduced as well, and slow airs. And that's what took place at that time. So every band had their own characteristic sound, their own characteristic style of playing, and these performances have never been recorded. They're lost. They're not on a record. They're not on a CD, and we can reproduce some of it. We can't reproduce the sound accurately because, first of all, there's none of us in our 30s anymore. We're all late 60s. And the second thing is that the quality chanter is not there because it was all wooden chanters up until about 1975. But we intend to reproduce it, and we have spoken to the RSPBA, and they're going to allow us to display this performance.
But McAllister was very much involved with the RSPBA at that time. So we were kind of guinea pigs, I suppose, in a sense.
And the actual tunes itself, who picked the tunes, can you recall?
Well, initially we asked everybody to think about certain tunes and things like that, and we got it all together. But it was Tom that coordinated it all together.
And did you find the tunes particularly difficult, Sandy?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can't get much more difficult than a march, drisspe and reel, really, can you? It was more, I wouldn't say more relaxed when you come to compete, but it probably was easier to learn these kind of things and play them the way Tom wanted.
The sound, what chanters and reeds were you playing at that time?
I think we were still on Sinclair's at that time. The Polypenkers came later in that, I think. It was probably their own reeds that we were playing at that time. Yeah.
The actual performance that day, how it went, how you felt about the competition.
the competition itself, I can't exactly remember what position we played, but there was certainly a lot of preparation going up, and we did do the rehearsals, but we had been quite confident the way things were going.
Okay, was it a long tune-up or was it a short tune-up?
It was reasonably short. We weren't guilty of doing that, playing long stints. The preparation was all done in the band hall before we got there.
You wouldn't be playing the set that often, I take it, before you went on.
We probably wouldn't play it straight through anyway. We'd probably just use it and do it in sections.
Yes.
On the tuning up side of things. We probably would have a full run over just before we went on.
Feel about when the results come out that day?
Oh, it was tremendous. Tremendous. It was really, we didn't really fully expect it. I mean, there's a lot of good opposition there. So it was euphoria, really. I can remember vividly playing down the high street for the Pipers'Persuasion Park.
We're talking about medleys there, and it's maybe just a nice cue to talk about 1970. The world's Shots and Dykehead won the medley competition. What's your recollection about that?
Right. We were grade 2 in 1970. We actually won the grade 2 that day. But after we played, most of the boys, I think, headed off to the beer tent. I just said, I'm going to sit down and listen to all the medleys. And the thing that struck me that day about the Shots medley, they began with the Hills of Alva. Then they played their slow air. Then the Strathspey's Reels. I think the hornpipe and jig, it might have been George Allen and Walk on the Floor, but they repeated the third and fourth parts of Hills of Alva. So you had that complete, the start and the finish. And that always struck with me. And I thought it was just the most musical presentation. Now, in those days, the bands didn't play. There was no big difficult tunes or anything. The Strathspey's and Reels you would have found, say, in the Scottish Guards and the Seaforth's books. Jigs were sort of the normal run of stuff. No great finger exercises. Hornpipes were a bit of a rarity by then. The interesting thing, just recalling back, Shots and Muirheads played their slow airs immediately after the opening tune. Red Hackle played their slow air in the middle of the medley.
Yes.
After the Strathspey's and Reels. Oddly, the Edinburgh Police didn't play slow air at all.
They didn't play any. Huh?
No, but one of the things I always remember, again, there was no strict rule or anything about how a medley was made up. Bucksburn District started their medley a 5-pace slow roll into the Dark Island.
There you go. And did they slow march?
Slow march up to the circle. Now, don't ask me what they played after that, but I thought that was really impressive. The thing is, if a band tried that now, they'd be breaking the rules.
So I remember Michael Gray fell in love with so many forms of music. It's remarkable, but he fell in love with walking songs. The stuff that the West Highland people used to shrink the wool.
I know where you're going with this.
And here we decided we would do this, but we had to play 2 3-pace rolls. And so we, but you couldn't play the tune fast because it wouldn't be walking. It would be either whatever. So we had these two long rules. And then into the tune. Fabulous music, just wonderful. And when it was all over, a drum major type guy came over to our band bus. We were all standing around having a jar, and he had the swagger. He was just the typical swagger stick kind of guy, you know, tucked up under the oxter. And pipe major, you'll be pleased to know you have not been disqualified. I said, well, excuse me, why are you coming to tell me a negative? I mean, if I'm not disqualified, leave me alone. Well, I said, so anyway, why? And he said, well, your opening tune. I said, what was wrong with it? He said, well, it's just not on. Well, I said, okay, well, whatever. Of course, we got absolutely ripped.
I remember listening to Ian MacLeod. I think he was doing the sort of commentary, but, you know, in the BBC, that Bob Worrell does now, you know, and Ian MacLeod, I'm sure, this is a lot of years ago, you know, but I'm sure he lost a rag with this one and says, where are we going with this? No, it's going to carry it. And I'm saying, what's the problem, you know? I don't know if you heard his views on it that particular day, but I thought it was a bit sore, you know.
Well, the thing is that's so amazing is that the RSPBA set about to establish some rules. And the rules were you would start with 2 3-piece rolls, which we did. And you would play at, what did they call it? A quick tempo or a marching tempo, I don't know, of not less than 60 beats a minute, which is exactly what we did. So, you know, it was the irony is they gave themselves a mental hernia over what we did and then just incorporated what we did as the rule. Really strange stuff.
You in 1970 were a pipe sergeant, City Glasgow Police Pipe Band under Ronnie Laurie. What's your recollection of the medley in advance of that performance? Have you any recollection of the tunes or anything like that we played that day?
To be truthful on that, I can't remember one tune we played in that medley. I know, but beforehand, Ronnie and I had a lot of discussion because Ronnie actually had some good ideas.
Yes.
You know, when you think about what bands are playing now, back then Ronnie had some really good ideas about the whole thing. In fact, he even at one point suggested that halfway through the performance, we should have the drummers playing on their own, a wee interlude. And then the pipers come back in again and things like that. And some of these tune selections were absolutely brilliant, I thought. But then I said to myself, but Ronnie, we're playing in front of guys that are your age now.
Aye, correct.
That maybe some of the stuff you want to play may be too far ahead of them. And
yeah, aye, because it was early days, and aye.
And a lot of them were pretty conservative in their ideas about what a medley should sound like. So we kind of worked it out basically in the way that the medleys did work out in the end is to try and find a nice introductory tune, and then you would break into the space and reels, and then you would have slow air and hornpipes, jigs and that kind of format. So that's just the way it planned out at the end of the day. I think most bands, would have come up with the same idea.
You know what I'm going to say? I think that was my last season in the band. And I think I remember playing at Aberdeen that day.
Aye.
And I'll tell you who was playing beside me was Joe Wilson, ex-Gordon Highlanders. Joe was there, and Willie Fortune was the other side of me.
Aye, Willie Fortune would have been there right enough. Aye.
Aye, right. And Another thing I seem to remember us practicing was the two wee reels, and one was a kind of nameless reel. Dumbity diddy diddy diddy. He had a dumbity diddy diddy. You remember that?
I remember that tune. Aye.
And Banjo Breakdown. Did we not play that?
Aye, because that was one of Big Ronnie's favourite tunes. He used to give you a jig version and a lump pipe version.
Was there enough training given to judges about judging medleys at that time?
Yeah, I found the medley thing very interesting because you were doing stuff that you'd never done before. And the interesting thing for me about the medleys is that it got people thinking in a different direction eventually from the standard classic march to Spain reel format, and opened the door for being imaginative, being creative, and doing things that were completely different from what a band you as a soloist you would go and entertain some people or play in the solo knockout competition and play a whole barrel load of stuff. But in pipe bands, you had to be careful. You're out there to win a competition, but in the likes of the knockout contest, you were there really to entertain people. I felt play well, good instrument, but entertain people. And I think that kind of amalgamated itself into pipe band world very well. And the interesting thing for me is that, as far as I know, for the most part, Ian McClellan picked all the pieces or worked on them anyway. And I was really impressed with the wide variety of things that we did. And of course, I'm a great admirer of Angus Laurie and the work that he did. Who would have thought that he would have started a contest selection with a 12/8? These are things that happened. And
what was the name of the 12/8, Jim?
I think it was the 78 Police Tattoo.
Okay.
And I think that's really one of the difficulties is the March to Spain Real Classic format, all the tunes were there for you. You weren't breaking new ground or anything like that. You just picked what you thought would do the job, but breaking new ground and being imaginative and remembering that there's a drum corps behind you and they should be involved in it. One of the things that I always did when I was the pipe major and when I was working with other bands was to work with the leading drummer to make sure that the tunes provided them with a rhythmic variety that they needed. Because when you finger tap a lot of tunes, the same rhythm comes out all the time. There are choices that you have to make about the types of tunes, the standard of them, what they're going to be like and how the drum corps is going to do it. And if the band has to play simpler tunes for effect, then the drummers have to adapt to that. The organisers and administrators of the association, the council, whoever it would be at the time, weren't operating on the imaginative level that the pipe would have been operating on in those days, and they wouldn't have seen that this is what people do. They break the rules.
Right.
And they, I assume, would take the position that, well, it's the same for everybody.
Yeah.
And which is fair enough, because you want everybody to have a fair idea of what they're getting into when they start so that they know they're at least on a level footing.
How can I play with this magnificent sound? The pipes, everything was just so absolutely A1, especially in the slow air of the offbeat rules of Alec Duther's arrangement of Lochbroom Bay. The normal rolls, the uptake to the march, 4/4 march, Els of Alva, written by Tommy Muirhead. Duthard beatings they're sensitive, to height, they're sensitive to weight, and if you stick to the sticking, the sound will create itself. But you have to be trusting enough to do that.
Tell us how you put this score together, the Duther.
Well, the material itself is very, very inspiring. So that was the easy bit, just getting the handage right and transcribing it. Was a wee bit of a challenge, and but the pipers and drummers all thoroughly enjoy it because of the craftsmanship in the compositions.
Yeah, and John, Alec Duther, he was unique in his approach to drumming at that time.
Oh, absolutely, and still very unique to this day. And I just spoke with his son there, and he's Drew, leading drummer of 73 for Highlanders.
He's Canada for the folks. Yeah,
and he's over the moon for doing this, and we had a play over some of the old stuff there with him.
It's attracted a lot of interest today, am I correct in saying that?
Yes, I'm finding that everybody's very curious to know it's a wee bit of a hidden mystery.
Yes.
And I hope there's nobody disappointed.
How's the drums holding up in the heat?
Drums is holding up fine in the heat. We've been in the shade there, just like the pipes.
Yeah.
So the heat dries them up a wee bit, just like the pipes, and they lose a wee bit of body.
Yeah.
But with the players we have, the experienced players, they can eradicate that through their playing.
Be able to manage it.
Yes.
Yeah, manage the heat and everything else.
Yeah.
And just by a short warm up and going on.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Did you have much bother with the tunes, Kenny?
No, they were all pretty traditional tunes. There's a couple of wee strange settings, unique to shots, but once you get them in your head, everything's pretty cool, you know.
Going from the round idiom of today back to the point and the cut and all that sort of stuff.
Not really. Actually, it's more enjoyable. It was quite nice to go back to that style. The pipe bands have kind of gone down their very round style now, and it's a bit nicer to go back to a bit more kind of traditional Scottish way of playing stuff.
Ken Stewart got hold of you, and you very kindly offered some support. What support have you given this group?
Well, McCallum Bagpipes were always keen to support piping, and this is a very unique project. And David Caldwell came and asked if we could make some chanters to shoot his reeds, which we did. We put soles on them, which is more traditional of the bands of the 70s. And on top of that, we've also supplied bag covers and some cords and pipe salts to sort of standardise everything. We've got our 70s, redesigned actually a 70s pipe band logo. It's got the McCallum Bagpipes logo, and also Andante, because they helped out with drums as well. So everybody who's helped the project get going is on the bag cover.
That's excellent. The chanters herself, you and David Caldwell, who's a pipe major, got together and discussed the sound, didn't you?
Well, he wanted something that would suit his reeds. He's a reed maker. Stuart McCallum, as you know, is a genius when it comes to designing things to suit individual reeds, so he just tweaked the chanter a bit to make it suit his reeds a bit better. It's been a great success, as you say. We had a great practice last night. Considering we've done minimal work, really, it sounded great, you know.
How does the pitch differ from today's pitch, say for instance, the pitch of 50 years ago, 52 years ago?
Well, the chanters we've designed is modern pitch. The reason for that is because he's making modern reeds. But the pitch has obviously changed a lot over those years. You know, in 1970 it was a lot lower pitched sound. The reeds were made to suit the lower pitched chanters. So, but because David's making reeds to suit modern chanters, we made modern chanters.
How difficult was that? Did you have to alter the chanters, today's chanters, very much?
No, it's pretty much the same chanter. Just a few wee tweaks in the bottom hand to make it easier for him to get sound quickly.
You've had a blow with the group, the Shots Tribute group. How's the sound bearing up at the moment?
Oh, it sounded, they just played a 6/8 there and it sounded pretty damn good to me.
Yeah.
But round my side of the band, that is, you know, it would be good round there, Alan, you know.
So, the medley itself, you're looking forward to playing this medley?
Well, I heard Shots when they won with it in 1970. I was at Hazelhead Park in Aberdeen the year that they won it, when they picked Muirheads. It was my last year in the 214 Boys Brigade Band, and I skipped away from my colleagues to go and have a listen to the Grade 1, and I happened to catch Alec Duthart, Tom McAllister. This was a historic occasion. Up to that point, it had always been March of Spades and Reels, and people were wondering how it was going to work out. Well, it was a tremendous success, I think. The crowd clearly loved it, you know, and shots rose to the occasion with a nice, beautiful melodic march to intro.
Yeah.
Lovely slow air. I don't know if they had seconds from memory, but we're playing a bit of seconds today. A couple of well-known spades, a couple of well-known reels, hornpipe and jig, the classic format for the medley, and they kind of established it that day, you know.
And then they finished with the march again,
and then they reprised the last two parts of the march at the end.
Yeah.
So that again took it down back to where they started.
Wonderful.
So that's maybe the one innovation that we don't hear today. But make no mistake though, the Shots were a terrific pipe band and a lovely sound, you know.
Yes.
And they broke the Muirheads 5 in a row at that time by winning it.
Yes.
And the cynics say, of course, that they were in favour of the change away from the March of Spade Reel because they couldn't beat Muirheads at the March of Spade Reel. So they, you know, but you know, Shots were well-deserved winners. They had a terrific sound, and Alec Duthart, they had a great musician. There's a band starting up.
Listen, thanks very much for your time,
Pleasure,
Robert.
pleasure.
All the best.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Today they're going to play that winning medley from 1970, which, for those of you like myself who've been kicking around for a while, commenced with the great tune Hills of Alva, written by Tommy Muirhead, who was actually an accordion player. And we'll go from the Hills of Alva into Lochbroom Bay, the Keel Rose, Stumpy, Sergeant E. MacDonald, Sandy Duff, the Banjo Breakdown, and finishing in 1970 with what was a recent composition by the late Donald MacLeod, specifically by Major George Allen. David Caldwell is going to be bringing the band to the line. Multiple All-Ireland Adult Piper of the Year winner. Great experience with a load of different Grade 1 bands, and I think he finished off with Scottish Power Pipe Band. And the drum corps is being led by, and it's great to see him out again, John Scullion, 4-time world adult drumming champion. They have taken the Alex Duthart scores and reproduced them for you today. They're going to come to the line playing the iconic tune written by Ian Duncan, who played with Shots at the time, Cullen Bay. So here comes the iconic Cullen Bay, led by Pipe Major David Caldwell and lead drummer John Scullion. Please give them a warm welcome as they deliver this performance to you.
Okay, thanks very much for agreeing to speak to us after the performance. You must be exhausted, but did you enjoy it today?
It's thoroughly enjoyable, it really was. It's a long time since I played in Grade 1. The last time I played in Grade 1 for the World Pipe Band Championship was at Ballaguston. That's how long ago it was, where a group of session musicians really playing a style that's not our own, but we copied the shots medley as accurately as we possibly could, and it worked very well for us.
And you got a lovely sound today.
Yes, we tried with a combination of David Caldwell, who's a reed maker,
Yeah.
and David,
you want to come round?
And David worked very, very closely with Kenny MacLeod from McCallum Bagpipes to just get a slightly modified chanter to give us that wee bit different
David's
sound.
going to tell us all this. Just you come on the camera here, David. And Ken's explaining the background and that sort of thing. But just very briefly, David, explain how you get today's sound.
Today's sound is something that is unique to each individual that is setting up the band, and every single band has that unique sound, and I can't really replicate somebody else. Whatever it is, it just comes from myself, how I anticipate it and interpret it, you know.
How did you find the blowers today? Were everybody blowing the instrument okay?
Everybody did very well, considering we only had about 6 or 8 band practices.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys we were using had just maybe come out of, not retirement, but out of like a break from bagpipes.
Yeah.
And when we talked about this, they were all up for yes, that's a great idea, and want to come back. And once we met a couple of times, it got a bit of enthusiasm going, and that got us to where we are today. And
you're very pleased with the result today. You played and all the rest of it.
Yes, we did. We played extremely well. A couple of wee things in it, but I mean, with only bits and pieces, we hope we did the shots and the pipe bands from that era proud to replicate that medley, and hopefully going forward, Alan, it's going to maybe let a lot of young people and bands take them back to where medleys and bagpipes actually originated.
And sound as well, yeah.
You know, our sound today was pitched probably exactly the same as most bands in the park is, but I think the important thing is the learnings from that great music that they've had, the simplicity of it. But when you've got a drum corps and a man like John Scullion behind the corps, it just transforms and makes your stress bass, your jigs, where they're pointed.
And
so
it
much
all
easier to
melded in, didn't it, Ken? The drummers and pipers just melded in lovely together.
Because we did our research, we made sure that we checked with the former pipe sergeant of shots, that was Sandy Bell, and they proofread the scores, gave us hints as to what was required. As I say, it's not our own style we're playing; it's the shot style, and we had to adapt to it.
Right. One last question: who makes the best reeds?
He does.
We're not going to do that one.
So, well done, David. A lovely sound and great reads, great McCallum chanters, and a great input with all the guys, and really cheerful embrace of the music, and everybody was so upbeat for it, and the whole time. As an observer, I was quite uplifted by the experience, and thanks very much, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Alan Hamilton from Pipers'Persuasion. Ken Stewart, quite a few weeks ago from Northern Ireland, contacted me and asked me if I could put together a programme on the Shots winning performance of 1970. So essentially it was a tribute to that, and an ad hoc number of pipers and drummers put together, and you've heard others speaking about who they are and what they've done. Now it's our job to put together a programme for Pipers'Persuasion. We're going to be editing that, and hopefully it'll be up by the end of August. And I've got to thank my team here today, Mike and Grant, camera, and John and sound. Thanks very much. And all the people who are involved in this are very appreciative of our efforts to put a programme together for Pipers'Persuasion and YouTube and Facebook. So hopefully we'll be successful and put this historic performance out there where people all over the world can view it and enjoy it the way we have enjoyed making it.